All right, we are live, right on time, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock.
You and me both.
David. Welcome, David. We're both going to be our way through this talk. You're getting over a little something. Thank you for pushing through and being on with us. I seem to perpetually have a little something going on, post nasal drip all the time. Anymore. A little tissue and a little cough. Welcome, man, out there in the community of the integrated man. Thank you for joining us or watching afterwards. I know some of you are jumping on. Let's put up in the chat. Hopefully, we're a little technically challenged here, so I don't know that I'll be able to recognize you in the chat. I have the phone next to me. And this is part 3 of the leadership series. I've decided to just take a delve down the topic of leadership because it's so important for men. I've worked with men now about 20 years or so. And leadership is such an important aspect of our lives. And I can say that collectively. Would you agree with that, Dave? And just how stepping into that leadership and accepting yourself as a leader and everything that comes with it can really enhance a man's life. I know it did for me. David was one of those men instrumental in that. And I'm happy to have him with us. Pay attention. We have a lot of wisdom here. David Turk, welcome.
Frank Tritini, it's good to see you.
Yes, good to be seen. I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you just introduce yourself? Tell the men a little bit about who you are, from your eyes, or even better yet, because you'll be too humble. Do it through your eyes and through the eyes how you think other men see.
Thanks. I've actually, I'm very tuned into the fact that the first thing that I think of, perhaps many people think of, is when we say, "Who are you?" We define ourselves by the work we do. And in semi-retirement, I've grown up a little bit and realized that no, I'm not that man. I'm not defined by the work I do, but I'm defined by the man I am. And it doesn't sound as easy, cut and dry, not as the possibility of quantifying is a little bit more difficult. Some people can say, "Oh, I'm a doctor, I'm an accountant, I'm this, I'm that." Who I am is, I believe, deep down, my legacy, if you will, is I'm a very good man who cares deeply about leaving the place better than I found it. And what I mean by that is through my actions, being an honorable man, caring deeply about others, being a man that is willing to vulnerable, authentic, honest, fun, funny, loving, lovable. I can leave others in a much better place than if I try to ram, my thoughts down their throats. So though I've had a career, and a very nice career, for 40-ish years in hospitality, that is merely the medium through which I express myself. And so that's who I believe I am at my best. And catering, event planning, and these days I do a lot of food walking tours, is how I spend much of my days. I'm also a father of 2 wonderful children, and I think I'm a good friend to a number of men and women.
Very good. I couldn't have said it better.
Thank you.
I love the fact, and that's why I invited you on, because that's who I know you to be. And it took you quite a while even to get to that professional side of who you are. Even though we're talking about, we're going to talk about leadership. So a lot of who you were as a leader, right? As the founder and owner of the catering business. Yeah, I'm sure you attested in that arena, many times on many levels. So a lot of good leadership stories there. If you want to share some later on, but I love the fact that you didn't even go there. Like, I had a man on last week, Lorenzo Marolo, great man, and it conversation I felt like kept on going back to that being the leader in the workplace, and he was doing it from a very heartfelt place. So I know what he was trying to do. Like, hey, man, if you want to be a leader, go in there and care about your people. And but it was a harder transition to say just how you're a leader in life. And that's more where my focus lies these days. And I don't know if that's something that comes with the gray hairs or attachment of ego. Not saying I don't have an ego, but I'm saying when you're a younger man, I feel we're more attached to that and stepping up and being a leader, stepping in front of the room. Yes, follow me.
There's an old joke about the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah.
Knowledge is something we accumulate for much of our life, but something happens in our brain at the age of mid-20s, 26, 27 years old, where the accumulation of knowledge slows down and the acquiring of wisdom starts to take place. One is much more fluid than the other. So the the difference could be the fact that with all this knowledge, I know that tomato is a fruit, but with my wisdom, I know not to put tomato into a fruit salad. It's like I was a smarter guy 40 years ago. Believe me, I was smarter. I was quicker. I could read a room more quickly. I had all the answers. I really felt I had all the answers. And I would say that with age and the gray hairs that you refer to, I'd like to believe I'm a lot more capable of seeing a painting for what it is rather than the brushstrokes that gave it life. The brushstrokes are beautiful, they're necessary, but it's different than seeing the whole painting. I find a lot of joy actually when I go to museums. Perhaps it's a flaw, but it's also, I know it works for me. I like to sit in the middle of a gallery and just kind of take in the entire space. As much as I enjoy going up to a painting and studying it, there's something to me more. Uh, uh, there's more life to the idea of being able to absorb it all at once. It kind of speaks to this difference that I'm talking about between knowledge and wisdom.
So when you're in that gallery in the back, what is it that you're absorbing? Are you absorbing, the energy of the whole gallery and the people, or looking at the paintings?
Yeah, nothing wrong with looking at the individual painting, of course, but there's something about life itself, the experience of living that I take great appreciation of in those moments. In the same way that walking down the streets of New York City, where I live, look, I get a lot of joy from looking at, in windows and experiencing the food that I'm eating or the movie that I'm watching. But there's also something very beautiful about the whole gestalt, if you will, like taking in the entire experience, breathing the air, if you will. I feel like that's where life is for me. It's no longer just about the details. Details are important. I was in a business of details every single day, 24/7 for 35 to 40 years. But I've let a lot of that go. I'm allowing certainly a lot more for humanity to exist, if that makes some sense.
Yeah, well, when you were describing what you just described, what I translated into my language, was being in the moment. Being able to be in the moment, and or being connected. Uh, and we've probably had these conversations before. But I always I think we look at life, or I look at life uh, with three lenses: body, mind, and spirit. And I personally can put anything in anyone's life in one of those, containers, to kind of look at it and break it down further. And when I talk about spirit, it's connection. That's what's, to me, that's how I break it. So anything that we're connected to, and the more connected you to it, or the disconnect from it, if you're aware of the disconnect, that goes with spirit as well. And just to be able to examine my life from that perspective and say, can this be better for me? Right. And just try to, and in the case of spirit, it may be just like putting the question out there and waiting for the answer to show up.
Well, you're an athlete, Frank,
Yeah,
and you are familiar with flow.
absolutely.
It's like not even knowing you're in the act of hitting a baseball or throwing or throwing, making free throws. In my case, I've become a swimmer in the last few years, and I'm hardly world class, but I just know that the act of breathing, which is probably the most overlooked aspect of swimming. Most of us think of, this and form and all of that's important, but I find myself these days, I don't want to say I'm daydreaming because that could be dangerous in the pool, but I'm actually just like gliding, flowing through the pool as opposed to doing all of the things that it takes to swim, if that makes some sense.
Right.
And it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more time. Time goes faster. Not that that's the key, but I'm not thinking about, oh, when is this going to be over?
Right. 'Cause you're in the moment.
I'm in the moment.
The moment's never going to be over.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and if you're enjoying the moment, why just keep going? It's like having good sex, right? For me, I relate that to good sex. When I'm having good sex, and you're in that moment, nothing else exists. No, nothing else exists.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, I do play guitar, not very well. And again, there's practice and there's the being. The practice is important. The learning how to strum the guitar, how to play the chords, and all of that. And every once in a while, I catch myself not thinking about all of that stuff, and I let my fingers do the talking, if you will.
Uh,
And it's a beautiful feeling. And I'm going, I have no idea how that happened, how I went from A to B, but it was a beautiful thing.
it's, it's great.
Yeah.
I want to experience that. And about, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I decided to buy a guitar. I bought this nice acoustic guitar, and uh, my son Ryan used to play a lot, still plays, but not as often as he used to. I had this vision that maybe one day we would play together, and or he would teach me some stuff. But I wanted to learn a little bit on my own, so I started watching this guy. I think Marty Walsh was his name, on YouTube.
Mhm.
Yeah, he got someone told me real, very good tutorials. So I
Yeah.
start watching them, and I'm playing, and my fingers are hurting, going through all that. And really, the bones, it wasn't even the pads. Like I felt like the bones in my fingers were bruised. That's the way it felt because I was playing, 20 minutes, a half hour every day. So probably squeezing way too hard, right? Too tense. Anyway, one night I come home and I've got some good music jamming in the car, and I got my earbuds in and everything, and I get out of the car and I come down to my basement and I pull out the guitar. I still got the earbuds in, and I put a song on. I think I don't know. I forget what song it was. And I cranked this sucker up. Right, and I'm listening to the song. It was like, and I'm just drumming the guitar, Dave. Like I'm not playing. I'm not playing, but the vibration of the guitar was going through. I couldn't hear the guitar because my earbuds were so loud, but that vibration of the music. So the strumming was kind of right. And the feeling that went through my body that I was in it, man, I was like consumed by that moment. And I was like, wow, I wish I could do this for real. Like I wish it was me playing. And moment of vulnerability here that, my son Ryan, who right now we haven't been in great communication for a while, but one of the things that saddens me is the right word. He had that talent. He has that talent. And he's played songs, Dave Matthews songs, Pink Floyd songs that we love, that he loves, that I love. And he's had that, and he has that ability, and he doesn't play much anymore. And it bothering. It hurts. I'm sad. I'm sad for him, because I want that ability. And there's not much I can do about it.
Why do you think he's not playing much?
Um, I don't know that he's connected to any real passion in his life. Um, at the height of his talent, he was 16, and his mom passed away when he was 16. So maybe there's a connection there. That's an eye that I have. He'll tell you that the guitar's out of tune, and because he really used to work on it to get it right, bring it to the guys, the luthiers that tune the guitar and set it up, and it's been a while since he's done that. So I guess his mind, the instrument isn't what it wants to be. So he doesn't play that much. That's one thing he said. I don't know.
There's the whole idea of meeting people where they are. When our children are 3 and 4 and 5 years old, there's a fair amount of watching over them that we need to do, and of course that extends, into their teen years and things like that. But there does come a time I've learned with my own children. I have a son who's he's 32, and my daughter is 28, where I stopped asking them, how's the guitar, or how's the pottery, or how's your painting going? Things that I wish I had their talent, because they express talent, just like you're saying. And the moment I stopped asking, it like they picked it up on their own again. Like there was some of that pushback that happens with kids. Like if it's dad's idea, it ain't gonna happen. And so I'm just, I don't bring it up a lot with them, but I'm just so happy that they're expressing themselves again through these creative ways. Both of them have some talent, and I want them to nurture it. I want them to figure it out on their own, what feels right for them. And the more I push, clearly the more they're going to push back. It just doesn't work like that yet.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't think I've like the only thing I've done is authentically just tell him how I feel about it. just telling, but I wish I could play one song like you do.
Mm.
You could play a whole shitload of songs,
Mm.
you know, and but I remember the last time I brought it up, we were in the car together, and it's been a few years. It's been a few years, so I really don't bring it up because it doesn't do me any good to bring it up. God, so I'll just feel sad about it until he picks it up again, uh, or not. You know. But what I was, when we were talking about being in that moment, through music, through the flow, um, sports, I can't help but again, I turn everything into either energy or the three or archetypes, and for me,
Mm.
that's the lover archetype for sure. The lover archetype is being able to be in connection with the moment, how I'm feeling, being with it, responding to it, not reacting from it. That's all the mature lover. Um, and what I've done in the work that I've done with the archetypes really over the last 10 years, even though I've been doing it for about 20 or so, is how in control of everything that lover archetype is in our lives, because of that emotion that's housed in it, and how that emotion can really influence, it does influence every aspect of our lives, um, in some shape, form, or fashion.
I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I went to Australia in October.
Yes, to visit
Uh,
your daughter.
Yeah, I spent a month. I had an intention. I went there to see my daughter. My daughter has been living there for almost 2 years.
Before you go down the story, did you get an Australian accent?
I learned how to put another one on the Barbie, mate. Um, and my real goal was just to be with her because the last time I hung out with her, she was a little girl. And certainly, I don't mean it physically, and I don't even mean it chronologically. The last time I saw her, she was 26, but to me, she was still a little girl. She's made her way around the world. She got a job in Melbourne. She's made friends. She got an apartment. Um, I think I told you we got together with the DeVito family, Tommy DeVito, while we were there, which was amazing because he was visiting his daughter. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, it's incredible. Um, the reason I bring it up, though, is because it was the very first time I let her take the lead. I just figured, you know what? I, I don't want to work so hard as to figure out where to go, how to get on the subways, how to do this, how to do that, what restaurants to go to. So I just said, you do it. Letting her be her was an incredible opportunity for us to kind of break through that wall that I've waited 28 years to break through. We had moments, Frank, where we just laughed uncontrollably for the first time in our lives together. It was beautiful. I mean, tears running down our face laughing because that's not who we are together. I've had that with my son on occasion, but never with her. And it was so real. You used the word authentic. It was just we were vulnerable with each other. And there are a lot of things we don't talk about. Just they're off limits. But we could find common ground in what we thought was incredibly funny. I don't remember the details so much anymore. I just remember us laughing and feeling a closeness that I've never felt with her, and she probably never had felt that with me. It was incredible. It was great.
So, what shifted in you to allow that to happen? Like specifically, if you can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I at first I was going, was I drunk? Um, And the answer is no. What shifted, I think, is that I was clearly on vacation. I was out of my element, out of the, wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, put my pants on, go to work kind of mode. I was, I do find it easy to relax when I go on vacation. Um, and maybe I'd never really truly gone on vacation just with her. So there was still always like this father daughter paradigm. I think what happened was I let myself be me. I let me be me with her without fear of angering her, upsetting her. Yeah, that drives a lot of our relationship. And in those moments where I just said, look, this is, again, I don't think it was intellectual. I think it was just like, let's just have fun. And I allowed it to be fun by not taking control, because that's typically how I have been as a father. The
As a father,
control.
okay, so specifically as a father, that's what I'm getting. That's kind of what I'm hearing. So as a
Yeah.
father, and I'm gonna play this back to see if I heard you right. As a father, your style was more of uh, being an active leader, showing them the way, protector, watching out for them. Uh, is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Certainly trusting in the process, and that these kids of mine are fully formed humans. Maybe they were fully formed when they came out of their mother's womb, but I think I had something to do with shaping them over those first X number of years of their lives. But they're fully formed now. I
Right,
don't
right.
yeah, I don't feel the pressure. Like I gotta perform. You know?
So the realization when you were with her that she's a super capable adult woman. She's not the little girl anymore, and I don't have to be her father. I could just be her dad. I could just be her dad.
Well said.
Is
I
that
don't.
accurate? I mean,
That's very accurate. Come to think of it, on those few occasions where she has introduced me to others in her life, especially in the last few years, she never introduces me as her father. I'm her dad.
nice.
And I've never even thought about the distinction in this regard. And that's really cool. Because I mean, we're never going to be pals, of course, but we certainly can have that I use the word intimate relationship. That sounds a little bit dangerous in the context of father-daughter, but I really mean the one that I crave to have with her, where she really gets to see me and I get to see her for being the fully formed and wonderful people we are. A lot of life up to this point has been, I think, judging, you know, looking for what's wrong in each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely one path that it can take. The way I look at it is, as I'll speak to my journey, but I see this with other people, and I think it's universal. We all have to develop into our own person. We're all unique individuals, every one of us. No two people are alike, the same, I should say. Very few people are alike, but not the same. And that's what has to happen, right? We have to develop ourselves. And for the first 7 years of our life, we can't, lack of a better word, can't wipe our own ass. So we need parents, to bring us along up to a certain point. And then after that certain point, our job is to pull away. And that manifests in all, I mean, a lot of dysfunctional ways, a lot of very beautiful ways. And again, no two are alike. And then when we are, and it's like, I'm not like him. I don't want to be like him. Like that that we have with our kids that I had with my father. Um, and I think somewhere a realization happened. Wait a second, we're part of each other, like physically, DNA, energy. You know, how crazy is that? I'm going to say that if your son was in the background and he yelled something out, he might even sound very close to you,
Oh yeah.
voice wise, right? Like, whoa, whoa. It doesn't sound like as we get older, our voices change, but it's like, wow, the mannerisms. Like it's we're part of each other. And that realization, when does that happen? Like for some people, it never happens. But maybe that's what you and your daughter are kind of getting to that realization that wow.
I'd like to believe so. It's taken a long time, and perhaps among other things, the fact that she's a woman and I'm a man has something to do with the disconnect. Because my son, I rarely had that kind of challenge. We've been, the first time we picked up a baseball when he was 4 years old, it was almost like the connection was there. It was like we can pick up a ball, or we can go to a ball game, we can listen to music, and it's just we're just you know uh, in it together. There's not a lot of consciousness,
Uh,
or conscientiousness. There's just being, and it's very cool. Every once in a while, I catch myself sitting in a way that I go, "That's how my father sat." And how did that happen? It's not necessarily the most comfortable position or pose, but yeah, we can't help but be shaped to a great degree by our surroundings, right? And especially, in this case, both males, it's almost inevitable. He throws a baseball like me, he shoots basketball like me, and you know, it just kind of happens that way. Not so sure about fathers and daughters.
well, there's still, either way the sexes and the different energies there, the DNA is still the same,
Yeah,
right? So whether you can get that synchronicity or what's the challenge in the synchronicity?
yeah,
Who's holding on to something? Is she holding on to something or are you holding on to something that's not allowing it to
yep,
get into sync?
yep,
Sounds like when you went to Australia, you just were able to let go of having to protect her, having any regrets, any resentment, whatever. Just like, just here to have fun. Oh, and like, wow.
yeah. Exactly. It was so much fun, and I'm thinking, what have I been waiting for? You know, why did it take so long? I don't have to be on vacation for that part of me to exist. The part of me that's willing to be vulnerable, um, authentic, and the part of me that's willing to see her for being a grown up, an adult. She's been an adult for really for 5 or 10 years. She's
Right.
28, but it's hard for me to let go of that paradigm. She's the little girl.
And that's great. And, I mean, I, I see, I've seen some women get so much comfort in that when their 75-year-old father puts their arm around them and says, you'll always be my little girl.
Mm,
And just that, like, that exists.
mm.
Little girl bond that exists with a father that does not exist with a boy. I have 5 sons, as you know. Like, and I tell people all the time, I said, I've come to grips with the fact that I will die alone in my own dirty diaper because my sons will be somewhere saying, what the hell dad's doing? I don't know. We should call him. Yeah, I'll call him tomorrow. Now, where daughters seem to, on a more general, have that bond, that, that caretaker bond with their father on some level. Maybe not all daughters, but a lot of daughters. That's what I've heard. So,
It actually first occurred to me when I think she was 18, and I her mother and I dropped her off at college for that very first day. And as I'm saying goodbye to her, I broke down and cried. And I can't recall if I ever cried in her presence, or if I did, it certainly wasn't often up until that point. But in this moment, I was crying with her, not just in front of her. I was crying. How do I say this? She wasn't crying, but I was crying because of her happiness, joy, all of that. And, as I'm hugging her, she's patting me on the back, like it's okay, as a mother might do to the child. And it was an unusual little shift that took place. But I don't even know if she would remember that, but I certainly remembered that.
I would put money that you would remember that.
Mm.
Seeing your father vulnerable for the first time, like that way, in that way, that's a pretty memorable moment for most people, I think.
I'd like to believe so. I had a moment with my own father when I was 13, and I had a bar mitzvah, and he was a big shot at the synagogue, and he's up there on the it's called the bima, basically the pulpit, and the ceremony was coming to an end. And to me, my father was always an old man and incapable of crying. I didn't even know men cried. And as the ceremony is coming to an end, he's in back of me, and the rabbi is in front of me, and all of a sudden, I heard what sounded like a sneeze in back of me. And I looked around, and it was my dad crying. It wasn't a sneeze, it was him crying. And I was like, wow, real men do cry. And that was the first moment where my dad became a human to me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful moment.
Yeah. There's that emotion again, that energy of the lover. I'm allowing it, you receiving it. Um, and I think that's, just talk, because the name of the group is the integrated man. I don't want to, take that moment. It's a great story with your dad, and just want to kind of turn it in. The integrated man is about the four archetypes that we have, and being able to blend them together and use them all, and how one can affect the other.
Mm.
And if those emotions, what do we do with them? We either be with them and express them, or push them away and push them down, um, and deny them, or completely go with them off the rails, like in a rage, or even an addiction. To go so much into the moment, right? But that's all emotion. That's all in the house of the lover, and to be able to get to that place, like you were talking, just to be connected in that moment, and be with the emotion, and feel it, and then respond to it, not react to it, respond to it, um, in a way that works for you, in a way that works for the situation. That's real. That's mastery. When you get to that level, that's a master level, to be able to do that, and that allows everything else to work well.
Yeah, I'd like to share a quick story with you, something that happened last week, 2 weeks ago, where my former brother-in-law, who I had not spoken to in 7 years, we never really had much in common, but when his sister and I divorced, there was just not a lot of reason to stay in touch with him. And I'd seen some very disturbing posts on social media, like where he is in his life. And I got very concerned. And, it was very easy to kind of write on social media, oh, everybody loves you. Don't do anything stupid. He probably got 50 of those, which must have felt good. But I said, you know what? Screw it. Just fucking get on the phone with the guy. I didn't even know what I was going to say, if anything. I had no plan. And Frank, for 45 minutes, he he just talked. He didn't ask anything about me, which was better than fine. He just talked. He needed to talk. And it was I didn't do it for me. It was certainly one of my better moments, though, just letting him talk, because clearly that's what he needed to do. And at the end of it wasn't a conversation, but at the end of this 45 minutes, he said something like, "Hey, great hearing from you." You know, and it was a beautiful moment. Like, I feel in that moment, the integrated man that you're talking about was very present as that man, and I didn't need to do much. And it was like, wow, I can actually shut up and be that man. And it was beautiful.
If you remember, you did the Legacy Weekend. I don't know if you remember when I did the presentation on The Lover, the different movie clips, and the one movie clip that I love showing it, and I picked it out years ago, was the movie Little Miss Sunshine. The brother gets in that rage because he found out he's colorblind. He can't live his dream, and he's in that warrior mode. He's the warrior. He's been so much in the warrior mode that he's took a vow of silence because he's gonna go fly planes for the Air Force, right? He's gonna get away from his family. This is ticking out. He finds out he's colorblind, and he goes into the rage. Right, stop the van. Right, so that someone else yells stop the van. He won't even yell stop the van. He's kicking and screaming. He gets out of the van and runs down the hill. Fuck. And lets it out, sitting in that despair. And they try to talk him out of it. Right? They come and reason with him, demand that he comes up. Right? And Olive, you want to say something? And little Olive goes down there, and all Olive, you know, seeing all Olive does, she puts a hand on his shoulder and her head on his shoulder. And it's like, the camera just sits there and watching from the back, and he says, "Okay, let's go."
Yeah.
And he gets up, and they walk up the hill. And a matter of fact, I think he wound up picking her up and carrying her up the hill the last half of it. So then he reverted back into once that, and archetypically what that is that's the lover energy. That lover energy that doesn't need words, just needs presence. Just needs presence to be, fully realized. And it's very accepting. That lover energy is very accepting, right? Which is hard to do sometimes when we're trying to tell someone something. I'm not going to accept what you have to say. I'm not going to accept your bullshit. I'm going to tell you how you have to do it, right? That's one way. But that lover energy is just like, yep, okay, no problem. And sometimes, people in despair, people in trauma, people on that level of upset, that's just something that brings that emotion back. If you even give it to me, I can take it, channel it to the ground. And it just, it's great. I love that moment. I love being that person, just to allow someone. And it's hard sometimes to not say anything.
I forgot that scene in the movie. I know it. I know exactly the hill you're talking about. I remember it, and I got to go back and watch it. That's a beautiful, beautiful scene.
It's a great movie. I watched all of it. It's good. It's a funny movie.
Yeah.
Alan. What I love about that too is that so just that integrated man is he went from the warrior, the stoic warrior, to the enraged warrior when he didn't have his emotions in check.
Right? The father, the great Canary.
No, not the good. This is the son. The son.
Oh yeah, the son.
He went from that
Paul Dan or whoever.
Stoic warrior.
Yeah.
Right. Then he found out the disturbing news. He was colorblind, so he couldn't be that. The emotions kicked in, and he lost his shit. So he started kicking and screaming and being violent. That's a shadow warrior, right? That's a shadow warrior. Runs down, boom. Then he goes in isolation. Shadow warrior again. People, his family was telling him, "Come on." He turned around, "You're not my family. Bankruptcy, divorce, suicide. I don't want to be like any of you." And he was like really rude, disrespectful. Uh, but he could even say it's a tyrant king, the shadow of the king, all because of the emotions. So then Allah comes down and he levels up. And as he gets back up, before he gets back in the van, he apologizes. He owns up to it. He owns up to it, and that's that. Thought like in movie making and storytelling, that could have easily been overlooked. But I thought that really showed him, as the character that went through that whole range, and now he's going to own up to what he did and what he said. That it was, not going to blame it on the moment. Owned up to it. That's what I did. Sorry.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's but I love that love of energy, just allowing the moment to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it for me, I gravitate towards it easily. I do have my barriers. I do have parts of me that goes, oops, that's a little bit too intimate, I don't know what that's about, but I do know that when I go there, when I decide to go there, or when the moment takes me, I find it very easy to go to get in there into that lover mode. It could be as simple as enjoying a piece of chocolate and really just like letting the moment just be overwhelming. Like, I mean, not to the point of tears coming down my my face. We go back to that initial conversation about the gallery. I could find myself literally in tears, just taking in the whole experience of being in great art. Because art is more than, of course, you know, the paint on the walls or the sounds of the music, the strings on the guitar. It's a human being poured themselves into that that personal expression. And I like witnessing art just like I like making art for the same reason. There's something obviously so primordial about it, so fundamental to living.
When you're observing the art, are what's your describe your experience? Are you seeing it and appreciating it for everything it took to make, from the artist's perspective, and his expression or her expression of it, and trying to extrapolate that, or is it just like being with it and letting it take you wherever you go, and not really caring and not even knowing, not even analyzing it, just
Yeah,
going.
probably both. Probably both. Um, I think there obviously is beauty in the details, as I mentioned earlier, that I can really connect to because somebody really gave their heart and soul to something. And similarly, I get a really big kick out of the very humanity that exists in that moment. Being at a concert, it can be like, okay, the moment itself can be just wonderful. And, something that somebody did on stage can be just so great. And finding myself amidst 20,000 people and feeling the physical, not just the we talk about the body, mind, spirit, there's truly something going on in those moments where everything is connecting. The body is feeling it, the mind is feeling it, the heart is feeling it, and it's a beautiful thing. I don't think one's any better than the other, but when it's all comes together, I get lost in it, and I just feel like, wow, that's the life I want to live. I want to be that man that experiences um, true intimacy with every aspect of my life. I don't know. It might kill me if I actually, walk down the street and had that experience 100% of the time. But when it happens, it's magic.
I don't know if it would kill you.
Well, thank you for saying that. So I have permission to be that.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I know exactly what you're talking about. Concert's a great way of saying it. You can listen to the music on a device or on vinyl or whatever your preference is. And of course, that music can transport me away. Um, but to hear the same music at Madison Square Garden, with 25,000 other, New Yorkers that are in that moment together, there's a collective energy that that's palpable, right? And that's why we do these things. That's why we, that connection. That's why we go to stadiums to watch baseball games and football games and tennis matches, to have that collective.
Well, I think you used the magic word. You've used it a couple times tonight, and it's the connection. I know you and I have both done this work. We refer to it as human beings are social organisms, and this idea that I am not alone. I can choose to be alone. Don't get me wrong, and sometimes I do choose to. It's probably not the healthiest place for me, but the exact opposite. When I choose to be truly inside of uh, a, a larger collective, whatever that is. Sometimes that could be just a family. It could be a team of some sort. It could be an audience, like you're referring to, or it could be walking on the streets of New York, where some might find anonymity in that. I find almost like a connection that I just adore. And a lot of times it comes in the form of touch. I do find that touch is very important to me. I like being in circles where I can feel the energy of the person next to me, and sometimes that really just requires, um, having my arm around the person next to me. It's for them, but it's also for me.
There's a lot of people that's very disconcerting.
Yes.
A lot of people. And I look at things, a lot of people like, oh, that's psychological upbringing or whatever. I always go to the baseline of energy. Manage the energy, so um, so I love the connection of the energy. And you said when I listened to the word, you said you can be alone. And if we're really looking at that at a higher level of consciousness, no, you can't. You can be by yourself, but you can't be alone. I mean, if we look at the globe, we're not alone. We're far from alone. I mean, if we're gonna look at that, I'm more alone than you because I'm in Jackson, New Jersey, and you're in New York City. But that's a little isolation. Zoom it out, and we're not alone. But we need to learn to be by ourselves.
scary as that might be at times. I like living alone, but I don't like being alone. And so there are times certainly where I just go, I just need to be able to turn off and not think about anybody else, or I don't want them thinking about me. Um, but I'm always really grateful that I'm a mere 5 feet from the closest, from the person closest to me. I could walk out into the hallway right now, and I need human connection, and when I need it, I have it.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh, my friend, we're nearing the hour. And I know this was supposed to be a third part in the leadership series, but we never really addressed leadership that much. It was more of that connection, and so I'm going to ask you to kind of bring that home a little bit, if just so like everything that we talked about, because I think I know the connection between that and leadership, but I'm going to make my connection, but I'd like you to make your connection. Um,
Yeah.
our conversation tonight, what we talked about, and it was a great conversation. Thank you for putting up with it through your little congestion and everything. I really enjoyed it. So, but how would you relate what we talked about tonight, specifically to leadership, being a leader? Good.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for this time. I really appreciate getting to know you. Whenever I'm with you, I feel like a better man. I really do. Um, I, I started my food career um, 35 years ago, let's say, believing that I was in the food business, the business of, preparing cheese and fruit platters and pigs in a blanket. And I was getting very tired after 15 years. It was exhausting, Frank. And I was ready to throw it all away. I really was. And, I had at that time two little kids and a wife, and I was scared. And I said, so what am I going to do? Everybody wanted me to do what made me happy, of course. But for me, it took a switch, just in my brain going, you know what? I'm not in the food business. I'm in the people business. I'm in the business of taking care of others and causing others to have just an incredibly enjoyable experience, whatever that looks like. Creating parties is the easy way. And I just said, I don't need to do a darn thing in terms of my physical plant where I'm working. I just need to change my attitude. And I changed my attitude overnight. My business became a joy. It became more profitable. uh, I started to what the hours I was putting in were still long, but it didn't feel like work. And eventually I was able to work less, earn more. So I would say if I would leave you with anything today, it's that this idea that um, I'm no longer just doing things for me, making nice food. I started to do things for others. I went from being extremely selfish to only mildly selfish, and it's encapsulated. You asked me to maybe think about a book that made a big difference for me, and you might be familiar with the Matthew Kelly book, Dream Manager.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we might even have talked about it at some point. But to me, that was a big aha moment to going. Nobody really cares about my dreams. Why should they? As the leader, what if I was to actually build a business built on having other people reach their dreams amidst the big dream, the business. So I would say that was something that made a big difference for me.
I've actually run a couple of Dream Manager programs. I incorporate that work big time. Um, Using our dreams to motivate people, and get them in touch with that. So
Yeah.
that's huge, and thank you for sharing that. Um, what I heard again, interpreting it archetypically into the integrated man is that you're in that warrior mode, doing, you're connected to making nice things, uh, but that doing after a while it just gets tiresome,
The word,
drained.
the word exhausting comes
Like,
to mind.
right, it's just like same thing. Just not gonna. And then all of a sudden, when fully embrace that lover side of it, and be you, right? Be you. 'Cause you're capable of doing all the other things, and you had to do that, right? But it's making that shift from that warrior that no one else was going to start your business for you. You had to do it. You
Yep.
had to do it. You had to do it. And so we get into that do mode, do mode, do mode, and then making that shift into that be mode. Right? The whole be do have and context, shifting your context,
Yep.
getting into that be mode and being with the people and focusing on them. And that's an ascension to the king archetype. I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about, I got my people I need to worry about. And then all of a sudden they start bringing you gifts. Yeah, kind of that's what happens when there's the good king gets we so that's what it sounds like to me from an archetypal perspective, and you're able to live.
Yeah. What you're saying also is like the king doesn't do it for himself, but there are so many rewards in being the king.
Right. And there's a lot of ways to be the king, and it sounds like you found access to the king through the lover, through accessing your lover with your people rather than the tyrant. I gotta do it my way. There might have been some tyrannical moments still.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Attention to detail, but
Yep.
without a pat on the back, maybe, or a gentle kick in the ass if needed. Just punishment.
Well, thank you for this time, Frank.
Yeah, it was great, David. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Appreciate your time. I know we've got a couple of comments from Chad Lindsay was on listening, and, Mike Charman, Nick Mondelli, a couple other people. So people watch it live. So we're on the recording.
Wonderful.
Turk, you're always a leader. You were always a leader, mentor in this work. But if you remember, I sought you out as a leader, as a divorced father of a young adult daughter, a little different than a business leader. Yeah, but still a people. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I did want to mention that, and we never really got there, but you did start that fathering forum many years ago. And that's kind of, I think, we didn't bring that up, but we talked about that, in your evolution of a father, and looking back. And one of the things, if you're open to it, I did talk to a couple other men that I'll probably do a fathership series down the line where we talk, and then we can get on that one. I mean, you can get on that one. We'll talk about leadership.
That's probably how it will go, but very cool. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Love you. And
love you too.
see you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.